Chinese President Xi Jinping's sixth visit to Russia since taking office brings more cooperation on trade, energy, finance and e-commerce. What is the current state of Sino-Russian relations? The DPRK has made a successful test of an intercontinental ballistic missile, with China and Russia urging the DPRK to suspend its nuclear program and the United States and South Korea to suspend military exercises. How can this joint effort help improve the situation in the Korean Peninsula? During his second visit to Germany, President Xi is encouraging more German companies to participate in the Belt and Road Initiative. How will China and Germany work together to promote continued free trade and globalization? The world waits as Donald Trump, Xi Jinping and Vladimir Putin prepare to meet at the G20. What new dynamic might emerge from this key interaction among China and the United States?
The Chinese and Russian presidents Xi Jinping and Vladimir Putin have made a joint declaration vowing to work together to push for settlement for the Korean nuclear issue with dialogue and negotiation. The announcement came during President Xi's three-day visit to Moscow, in which the two leaders also signed deals for economic cooperation and also pledged to support each other's sovereignty, national security and development interests. President Xi now makes his way to Germany for talks with Chancellor Angela Merkel before attending the G20 Summit in Hamburg, where he will also encounter Donald Trump. To discuss these topics and more, today I'm happy to be joined in the studio by Feng Zhongping, Vice President of the China Institute for Contemporary International Relations, and Harvey Zodin, freelance columnist for China Daily. We will also speak to Anna Otkina, partner in the Moscow office of the DLA Piper law firm, and Marcus Keim, Senior Fellow of the German Institute for International and Security Affairs via satellite. That's our topic. This is Dialogue. I'm Natalie Wong, sitting in for Yang Rui today. Well, gentlemen, today we have a very packed topic to talk about. But first, let's start with Xi Jinping's visit to Russia, which was already completed. This is Xi and Putin's third get together so far this year. So what do you make of the timing of this visit?
Well, I think the timing is obviously no accident. It's coordinated with the G20, and it continues discussions that have been held earlier. It seemed to be a meeting that went very well.
I think, the last two meetings was, not this time is a state visit. The last two meetings, one is, during the Shanghai Cooperation Organization meeting in the capital of Kazakhstan. That's right. And the one is in Beijing. That was during the Belt Road International Cooperation Forum, but this is different this time. This is, I think, this is very formal state visit, and the two countries decided they will have this kind of high-level, frequent visit to show the whole closer the two countries are.
I think one of the other things that distinguishes this visit is that it produced a lot of concrete results. Russia and China had been trying for a long time to come up with some economic cooperation, and it happened this time. Over $11 billion in RMB-denominated aid. RMB-denominated, so it avoids U.S. sanctions. But aid that will help Russia to work with China on Belt and Road connected projects and Belt and Road projects between the two countries.
We'll talk about Russia's role in this, or its intention in this Belt and Road initiative later. But let's turn to our Moscow guest there, Ms. Anna Otkina. How is this visit by President Xi Jinping to Russia received by the Russian people and its media?
Hello, everybody. This surely has been one of the most successful and unprecedented visits by the Chinese leader, which was very well received by the Russian press. There has been a lot of publications in the formal Russian media regarding what has been signed. As you know, one of the things that had happened at the beginning of the meeting is that Russian president awarded President Xi with the highest national award that the Russian government gives to the politicians, which they think created the most links and continue to develop the relationship with Russia. And President Putin underlined that he sees this visit as continuation of the efforts to build up this friendship and relationship between Russia and China. And this award clearly demonstrates that this is what has been going on, and that there is a lot of goodwill among the Russian government and the Russian companies and the Russian people towards China.
But the two leaders are also facing some challenges in the region. It was supposed to be an Independence Day gift for the U.S. I'm talking about the DPRK's launch of an intercontinental ballistic missile. But it also happens when President Xi and Putin are meeting together. And this is a touchy issue for both China and Russia. So how are they going to work together to solve this issue? The two leaders, President Xi and President Putin, have jointly issued an announcement, declaration, saying that this is, of course, against the UN resolution, the launch of the ballistic missile. And the two countries are urging the DPRK side to execute the double suspension principle proposed by China. So is this going to work, Harvey?
No way. It's not going to work because the American government feels that they're not going to cease cooperating with the South Korean government. And also there's the question of THAAD missiles, whatever happens to them. And part of the problem is that, as one American diplomat said, we're not going to buy the same horse twice. Although now this is the third or fourth time. So we're not going to give North Korea a chance to make an agreement that they'll subsequently break, as they've done in the past. It's not going to fly in that form.
But the U.S. has been ratcheting up rhetoric about China's heavy move in his Twitter immediately after the launch of the ballistic missile. What is Trump talking about? Will there be any move by the Chinese side?
It's very interesting. I think when Trump became the president of the United States, he, on the first day, very first day, he realized how serious this issue it was. I think Obama told him, but he didn't know. I don't think he until today he realized how complicated this issue, the North Korea issue, or North Korea nuclear issue is. So China had a great pressure from the United States in the past weeks and months. But China, Russia are two powers in the region, and this is a significant announcement, I think, during Xi's visit. The two countries made a joint proposal. For me, the most interesting thing is, the two countries want to have a so-called comprehensive and effective security mechanism. This is new. From the words, of two governments, academics used to say this a lot. But before doing this, you are right. China had proposed double suspensions, or sometimes they call suspension for suspension, a proposal package. That's for the short-term arrangement. But for a long-term point of view, I think North Korea issue or Korea Peninsula issue can only be solved through dialogue, through political means. How to do that? You have to provide something which really makes the two Koreas, North Korea, but not just South Korea, but North Korea, feel secure. How to do that?
What are the key players or the key influencers in this issue?
Well, I think it's clearly North Korea, South Korea, China, United States, Japan to some extent. The missile that was fired the other day landed in Japan's exclusive economic zone. So I think those are the key players. And I think the worry is that there's no way to ensure that North Korea keeps its word. If there was a way to verify that they were not going to go further, as we were able to do even with Iran, then maybe there might be some hope. But I think what has to happen first are for those key players, maybe minus DPRK, to get together and talk, as I'm sure they will, on the sidelines of the G20. So this is an opportune time for this potential ICBM to be fired, and also leaders to discuss this, because even though it may or may not be on the agenda of the G20, it's like the 800-pound virtual gorilla that's going to be in that room, that conference room.
Let's talk a little bit more about the triangle relationship between China, U.S., and Russia. U.S., of course, is a big player everywhere in the world. It has just authorized $1.3 billion worth of arms sales to Taiwan, complicating its relationship with China. It sent a destroyer or patrol ship in the South China Sea area. A very complicated issue now between China and the U.S. Now, is the U.S. pushing China closer to Russia, which is a traditional partner with China? And we are also seeing a complicated relationship, well, assumed, or the U.S. may call it the, the claimed relationship between Donald Trump's administration and the Kremlin. What kind of relation now, these three players?
Well, you know, it's an axiom in international relations that there's no permanent friends or enemies, only permanent interests. And so we're looking at the ups and downs of relationships between, in this case, three countries. And I believe, as he's done in so many cases, Donald Trump, like a bull in the china shop, is just going around and breaking things that were established for many decades.
But who's the fly?
Who's the fly in the ointment? I think he's both the fly and the ointment, because he has no regard, or I think no knowledge actually, of history. And because of this, I think in his actions that he sees as benefiting the United States, trying to bring security, trying to make our allies pay the freight for their security, etc., he's pushing, he's having unintended but probably foreseeable consequences. One foreseeable consequence is pushing Russia and China even more closely together.
Let's turn to our Moscow guest here. Anna, how do you think Putin sees Russia's role in this three-way relationship, and how do Russian and U.S. interests in the Middle East affect that?
I can only say from my personal view, but as far as we see, Russia and China has had their long relationship, which has been growing despite the problems which with the U.S., or maybe in parallel with how the relationship with the U.S. Has been developed. I mean, from the person like myself, who is not a politician, you can only say that President Putin has been long enough in power to see, I think, the fourth U.S. president. He has stayed in power to be able to see various American presidents, and Russia has been able to cope with all of them. Now, of course, there is a lot of hope, and as President Putin said, a lot of hope that the relationship with Russia and with the U.S. would grow back. And but I think our friendship with China would be growing despite or without, taking that into relation nonetheless, because there are a lot of economic interests, and as everybody has been mentioned right now, is one of the most unprecedented points as how close Russia and China has been.
Right. Let's not talk about politics, since you're not a politician.
So
moving on to money matters now. Deals worth $10 billion were expected to be signed this time between Xi and Putin. And our studio guest here, Harvey Zodin, said this is unprecedented. Some substantial deals are already signed. To go around the sanctions Russia has been facing, recently. So how important is Russia for Russia's economy rebound as it faces continued sanctions and restricted access to Western financing?
In my view, Russia has adjusted to the current situation, and there are a lot of views among the Russian businessmen that despite the sanctions, quite a number of Russian industries have developed, which were sort of in the process of developing before the sanctions. Now they have become stronger and stronger because there is much more reliance on the domestic industries and domestic products. Now, naturally, there is quite a bit of issues with external financing, which Russia has been looking at for in China and elsewhere, and I understand, and from my experience, they have been quite a little bit of very interesting financial transactions involving key state Chinese banks into the Russian industry already now. And this, judging from what has been signed this week, this sort of investment of China into Russia and the mutual cooperation is just going bigger and stronger.
Thank you very much. That was Anna Altkina, partner in the Moscow office of the DLA Piper law firm. Thank you very much. Appreciate it. I want to ask one last question in this section when we're talking about President Xi and President Putin's meeting. Since Russia is now facing a lot of sanctions and its connectivity and wage is not that attractive for Chinese investors, is that still the case, or is it changing?
I think, China and Russia economic cooperation actually is not that bad as a lot of people expect or thought. Russia has, it's a strong strength in terms of energy, which China badly needed. The tourism has developed very rapidly. If you have friends, they will tell you, how beautiful Moscow, Red Square could be when they traveled.
But in terms of its economic background, the corruption, the politicalization, does it still an ideal or favorable investing environment for Chinese investors?
I think Chinese investors looking for different things in different countries.
Okay.
Russian market is is different from Germany market we are talking about later on. So they're looking for something which other countries couldn't have. But I want to tell you also, the regional cooperation. China and Russia are close neighbors. So regional cooperations are now developing. And also during Xi's visit, I think negotiations on this building the Moscow to Kanshan high railway is also going on.
But
so
I think one of the shortcomings of this meeting was that there's still no agreement between the two countries on collaborating the Belt and Road along with the Eurasian Economic Union. And this has been a long time problem, and the can's just been kicked down the road, and it has to be addressed.
All right, thanks, Harvey. And let's take a short break, and after this we'll talk more about President Xi's current visit in Germany and his upcoming meeting with the G20 leaders in Hamburg. Stay with us. Welcome back, gentlemen, to Dialogue. And later, Mr. Markus Keim, Senior Fellow at German Institute of International and Security Affairs via satellite. First, this is a very frequent meeting by Chinese leaders to Germany. Last one, we have Premier Li Keqiang signing big amount of $26 billion worth of deals with the German enterprises. Now, President Xi is also in Germany. Why such a frequency?
I think two reasons probably. This time, certainly, G20 is very important events for Chinese government. Last year, when you remember, G20 we host in Hangzhou, and this year it's in Hamburg. So Chinese president, it's really his main trip was for the G20. So no doubt about that. But also, secondly, I think Germany is very important a country. It's the fourth largest world economy, but it's also the biggest economy in the European Union. 28 member countries. So Germany can really do a lot of things to for the China-European Union ties. So that's why I think the frequent visit between China and Germany.
Harvey, your take on this?
Germany is the economic and in some ways political leader of the EU. It's also, you could say, the tail that wags the dog of the EU. It's very, very important, and I think that's why President Xi is there. Also, Angela Merkel and President Xi have an excellent relationship, both personal and working, and they can really get a lot and are getting a lot done.
I'm getting an impression that the relationship between China and Germany are getting more pragmatic rather than ideological. Why is this changing?
I think economics has a lot to do with it, but again, it's not a pure picture, 100% pure picture, because there's still some bumps in the road. Germany would very much like what President Xi said at Davos to be true in fact, that there is free trade. They have a lot of problems with, as they view it, restrictions on trade that's coming from the Chinese side, for one, and also, although they won't raise the issue so strongly in public, they have certain problems with human rights in China. So those are two sticking points.
Yeah, let's turn to our German guest here, Marcus. Marcus, like Harvey mentioned, Germany often criticized China about human rights, the South China Sea issue, a double management of the NGO, free trade issue, internet censorship. Now, with Merkel facing a general election campaign, will she put extra emphasis on these criticisms during Xi's visit because of pure political politics, pure domestic politics, I mean? So how can China and Germany solve these differences?
I would agree that for the time being there will be differences, and you mentioned some of them. The role of civil societies, internet censorship, the human rights situation, and so on. And just this morning during the press conference with the Chinese President Xi Jinping, Angela Merkel purposely made a reference to the particular role of the civil society in the bilateral relationship. However, I would fully agree with you that about the pragmatic turn of Germany's China policy. I think the German government is fully embracing China's rise in the international scene, and in particular the economic role China plays in international relations. And therefore, I think the German government is very strictly dividing the critical issues from the overarching strategic partnership, and this has been the term which has been used exactly this morning over and over again. China is a strategic partner for Germany.
Another issue that is closely watched is that will Germany make a different statement on dropping the surrogate country approach this time? Will Germany lead the other EU nations in recognizing China's marketplace status?
Difficult to say. I think Germany plays the dominant role for the time being in Europe in political terms as well as in economic terms. But recently there's in the public opinion widespread skepticism about fostering free trade that applied to TTIP, that applies to CETA, the major trade agreements with the United States, the major trade agreement with Canada, which have been pursued by the European Union over the last years. And given this public mood, to put it this way, and the federal elections the Chancellor is facing on September 24th, I think during the summer and the late autumn there won't be so much movement with regard to those issues. And additionally, the European Union currently is way more inward-looking since some years, and there's no major appetite for engagement with the world on the European side compared to several years ago. And if you combine those two issues, I think there's not a big chance for China in this regard.
Well, that means we have to tread forward without touching these touchy issues. But how important is Germany to China and China to Germany? Pure economic?
Well, I think it's more than economic. I think as the U.S. recedes from its role of world leadership, the EU is going to pick up that role, and Germany is the engine that pulls the EU along with it. So I think that's very important.
I think we used to be mainly focus on trade investment, and Germany is the biggest high technology supply for this country, for China. So, China naturally focus on this technology, investment, capitals. Today, I think situation are changing now, especially when after Trump became the president of the United States. And China and Germany are two industrial powers, are two great export nations. So we are facing a rising anti-globalization trend.
That's right.
So this trend, Brexit, Trump phenomena, actually pushing China, Germany closer. So the G20 will touch up on this, I think.
Right. The G20, speaking of the G20, a lot of results from last year's G20 in Hangzhou, sustainable development, global governors, inclusiveness. Will these rhetoric be continued in this year's G20? We are seeing new presidents from both the US and France.
It's interesting, at the very beginning of our whole program, how we are going to watch, how Chancellor Merkel as the host, Xi Jinping and Donald Trump are going to play, when they meet in Hamburg.
What will be the key issues discussed in this year's G20?
Well, one thing I wanted to say first was the theme is shaping an interconnected world, and it's ironic because people like Trump would rather have the topic be shaping a disconnecting world, because they want to do away with free trade. They want to do away with the environmental agreements that were hard fought and reached, where China and U.S. had previously exercised their leadership. And so I think that those are some of the issues that will be discussed. Now, I think this time on the sidelines is going to be as important as the actual formal sessions. Why? Because President Xi will have a chance to meet Prime Minister Modi, because there's a border dispute now, as we know. Also that President Trump will meet with Japan and South Korea to confer about the situation in North Korea. So I think the G20 is important, but the sidelines are going to be more important this time.
Side dishes are going to be more tasty than the main course.
Yes.
Thank you very much. That was Arvid Zoden, freelance columnist for China Daily, and Mr. Feng Zhongping, Vice President of the China Institute of Contemporary International Relations. And earlier, I would like to thank Mr. Marcus Keim, Senior Fellow at the German Institute for International and Security Affairs via satellite. And that'll do it for today's dialogue. I'm Natalie Wong, sitting in for Young Wei. Goodbye for now.